Going. Oh, that? Okay.
All right, we got a special one tonight. We've got John Sumple here. He's one of the creators of Extraordinary, The Seeding, which is the second documentary in a trilogy about alien contact, abductions, and stuff like that. So looking forward to getting into this a little bit, John. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. It's been an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, it's good to talk about it. I mean, part of me wants to resist talking about it, but because I'm one of the guys out there trying to make contact, so it's kind of the other side of the coin. But we like to explore all topics in here, and UFOs is a big part of what we talk about. So yeah, definitely interested to learn more about it. I watched your film; it was great. Yeah,
thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really really good. I liked how you had a different. You had some of the guys that you wouldn't traditionally see in a film like that. Like the Alejandro Rojas and the what's his name?
Richard Dolan.
Yeah, well, yeah, him too. Yeah, it was good to.
Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah, D'Antonio. Yeah, I met those guys once at the 20. When did I go? 2013, I think it was.
I think it was the
Congress there. Yeah,
no, it was the 2013.
Yeah, it was great chatting with
volunteer?
With those guys. Yeah, I volunteered at that one. And yeah, it's just good to see them in the film giving a sort of balanced perspective on it,
Yeah, that was interesting to get those guys in the first place. When we talked to them and told them what we were doing.
Yeah.
And that we wanted to have expertise that was, I wouldn't say, they're far from hook, line, and sinker. That's for sure. And they add a lot of, I think, credibility because they asked challenging questions, and we made sure that they held true to their MO. So it was good to get that perspective as well.
Yeah, exactly. So what started this whole thing off for you? Like the trilogy, I guess. I mean, if we can go back a little bit and get a little bit of the background of,
sure,
because it must have been a little bit of a journey getting to this point.
Absolutely. And some of it seemed to be some sort of a cosmic intervention, I would say. It started back in 2009. Jack Roth, one of my producing partners and creative partner in all this, he wanted to do a kind of a travel documentary throughout the southeast of the United States to visit different spots where there had been either a lot of sightings or crashes, and just kind of do a get to know the people in the area type of thing and report on that. So more of a travel documentary, but also focusing on ufology. But when we were in the pre-production start of that process, he went out to an event in Denver, Stephen Greer event, and he wound up meeting Alejandro Rojas and Chuck Zukowski, who just happened to be investigators on the Stan Romanek story. And he was shown some of the evidence there, and we were kind of introduced to that story relatively quickly. And that really is what led us to the first film. It was not something we planned on doing, but we engaged in it because we were introduced to some evidence, and it was head scratching evidence, and we were a little bit challenged by it, and we needed to vet him a lot more than he needed to vet us. But there was a long vetting process of almost 2 years before we finally got to a point where there was agreement to move forward.
Wow.
And yeah, it took a while, but once we got it all dialed in, we spent time with him going through all of his evidence. So we made 3 different visits to his house and learned about his story and talked to a lot of the people who were present in some of the events that happened in his life. So we felt pretty confident that, there's a good portion of his story that was worth reporting, and you don't need to believe all of it. And a lot of it is a little sketchy. Yeah. A lot of it is, I think it's not clear. Is it something being perpetuated on him? Is it a government thing? Is it a deep state thing? Is it alien? I mean, there's a lot of mystery that surrounds some of the things, but some of the things that happened in his story were profound, and we felt it was important enough to tell the story. Yeah. So that kind of got us there. And the film premiered in 2013 at a film festival in November. And a couple months later, he does the pen flipping cap thing with Peter Maxwell Slattery in an interview, which discredited him. And there's a whole story behind that. But we were shocked when that happened because the timing couldn't have been worse. We were engaged in conversations with potential distribution opportunities for the film. Right. And then a month later, he gives us a call and tells us that he's been arrested and has known about the potential for 9 months and didn't say a word to us. So we, for lack of a better word, we were screwed,
Yeah.
and there's not much that we could do. So our only option was self-distribution. So we started a website and started distributing the film by ourselves in May of 2014. Fast forward 3 years later, out of the blue, I get a phone call from the Orchard, and they said, we saw your film. It's really not anywhere out there. We don't see it on torrent sites. We don't see it really, being represented. Are you interested in having us get it out there? And we were like, absolutely. And then boom. It was a phone call in January, and a deal was done, and the film was started digital downloads in April, and it made it to Netflix by July. And it took off. They had low expectations. They didn't spend a penny on any marketing for it, and the film wound up tripling what their projections were.
Oh, that's great.
So that's where everything changed for us, because we kind of thought we were dead in the water. We didn't have much sales at all. And then boom, this happens. And based on the success, the Orchard came to us and said, would you guys be interested in doing another film in this genre? My initial reaction was, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't want to be pigeonholed. But they let us pick the topic. They let us pitch what we wanted to do. And we pitched the idea of, let's continue the story that we started. Not necessarily the Stan Romanek story, but the story of abductions and that process that one would go through, with a second and a third film. So the second film focuses primarily on abduction and reproduction purposes.
Right.
For reproduction purposes.
Yeah.
And we've already shot the third film, and that one's moving into post right now. So we hope to have that one out next year.
What's that one called?
That one doesn't have a title yet. That one's
yeah.
Extraordinary 3 at this point.
Yeah. So how did the Stan Romanek one come across? Especially after the controversy with him and all. How was it taken after? Or that was
well, it's polarizing.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
You either believe it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's equally yoked on both sides.
Yeah.
It's a stalemate.
Yeah.
So there is no middle ground. So we had some challenges with it, but our whole thing is we're reporting a story. We're documenting in a time frame from 2000 to 2010, and the stuff that happened with him happened in 2013.
Yeah.
So we're like, that's really not part of the show, but we felt compelled enough to put something in at the end of the film so it didn't look like we were skirting the issue.
Right.
We definitely addressed it at the end of the film.
Yeah.
What is the story? Could you give us like a rundown?
Just a quick. Yeah, maybe just a quick one, I guess, for people.
Well, some people would say he's the most documented experiencer and abductee out there. He has tons of evidence. He captured photographs. He had actually kept items that he had purportedly taken on craft. He had several things happen to him physically and had been documented. He just had tons of video, photo, and physical things that happened to him, and several of the things happened with other people present, witness to what he saw and experienced.
Yeah. And he had a viral video of a looky-loo, like a gray alien popping out, and kind of looking at him and then popping back, and then there's big controversy whether that was real or fake. I mean, that was one of the things that propelled him.
And he was on the Larry King show, with that video, and taken out of context, that was probably the worst PR move anyone ever recommended to somebody. Is, hey, go on a show where nobody knows who you are, take this 5-second video clip and show it, and then have people believe your story. It's just not very smart move. I would have never recommended that context. And that's the one thing that we've learned through this process of the films that we've made. So we've got 2 that are out now and one that's in post-production. And it's when you spend time with the individuals and you get to know their story, and you really spend the time getting to know them personally as well as what they've been through, you have a much better appreciation versus seeing a 5-10 second clip on a video. Out of context, seeing that, I could see why tens of thousands of people would turn away and say no. But that's just one small piece of evidence in his story.
Yeah. And then in the end, he got I think this happened. He might have been at the 2013 Congress that I was at. Like that was kind of I remember that now being the peak of a lot of that. And then he ended up getting arrested for.
And that was in February. It was February 13th, 2014. We got the phone call. Yeah. So he eventually was arrested, went through trial like 3 years later in 2017, and they found him guilty. He served time, and it wasn't prison, it was community service, not community service, but like a community prison,
Yeah.
halfway house type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had a lot of health issues, and they didn't want the burden of trying to nurse him back to health, so they released him after only I think less than a year.
Wow.
So we don't keep in touch with him on a regular basis, so we're not quite sure where he is. But the last thing that we heard was that he had cadmium poisoning, and there was an assumption that it was administered to him. Somebody poisoned him.
Yeah, it's oh man, that's one of those complex topics. I mean, I appreciate you going over it and giving us the rundown on it. It's just one of those things where there's so much. It reminds me kind of in a way of some of the older UFO cases, like the Billy Meyer and the other ones, where there seems like there's so much legit stuff, and then they get caught faking something, and then of course it's easy for everybody to just discount everything. It's just
Well, the one thing that always is said about Stan and a lot of other people in that same category is that they're doing it to make a buck.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that is not.
Yeah.
there is no riches to be had in doing this. Some people there might be a few people that are doing that, but when you're an experiencer versus an investigator or a researcher, you get nothing but ridicule. You draw negative attention to yourself by going forward and sharing your story.
Yeah, exactly. And the people you had in the seating documentary were they all seemed pretty well balanced and well spoken and very calm, and they didn't seem to have, I don't think, any signs of wanting this to be, they're pretty humble being on there.
Yeah. Well, we went through a pretty long process of vetting people. We, I think, had a list of around between 40 and 50 people. Wow. We wound up interviewing over 30. We spent anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 hours in 1 or 2 phone calls with these individuals. And our objective was to find new faces. That was very important to us, and not bring people whose stories have been told numerous times. Yep. We wanted audiences that were watching it to think that, wow, this could be my next door neighbor. This could be someone I work with. This could be a family member. We wanted them to see that it's not just, a bunch of backwoods, toothless people that are the ones getting abducted and wearing tinfoil hats. We wanted to move that out from the fringes and into the masses. So the big objective of the film was to reach the widest audience possible, and by telling stories that would people could connect with, we felt that we would have a much better chance of doing that. So the 3 primary people, April, Rob, and Geraldine, very different personalities, very different experiences, but very normal people.
Yeah. Did you know you were going to sort of narrow it down to like the seeding aspect and the hybridization part, or were you first thinking about abductions in general?
No, we knew that we were going to go into the second film so the Stan story starts out with lights in the sky. So, the first 30 minutes, 25 minutes of his film is all evidence. And then we move into what happened to him. So tons and tons of evidence. So it starts with lights in the sky, and then, what is that type of thing? And then we move from the lights to abductions, and then from the abductions into the potential that there were sexual reproduction experiments going on, to the fact that by the end of the film, we introduce hybrid children. And we figured that with the next film, we wanted to take that a little bit deeper and explore the whole hybrid children connection to the abduction phenomena. So that was something that we wanted to do from the very beginning. We had met Sierra Neblina when we were working on the film with Stan, so we had known her for a while, had heard her story, and that always kind of stuck in the back of our minds, that would be an interesting story to follow up on down the road. And when we had the opportunity to pitch an idea to the Orchard, this was the one that kind of bubbled up to the top. And we knew that we would have some really good people based on the connections we had already made, but then we found several other good ones that helped, I think, show the depth and breadth of what these people are going through. A lot of corroboration. Again, we had 9 people that were experiencers. We didn't have hundreds of thousands. And there's a lot more than 9 people to tell a story, but there was a lot of similarities to the types of stories that you hear over and over again from researchers and investigators.
Yeah. Did you notice that the phenomena at all has decreased in the last decade compared to a previous? Like, I always had in my head that the abduction phenomenon has kind of been like on the wane a little bit.
No, I would say we didn't get the impression that it was, and here's why I would say that is that the women that we talked to had abduction experiences when they were younger that they weren't aware of, and it wasn't until they had some sort of an event, something that was happening in their lives that made them question, what was going on, that they needed to look into it further. In Sierra's case, it was conscious. She was conscious when she had her experience. There was no ifs, ands, and buts about it for her. This is what I saw. This is what I felt. But with Geraldine, back in 2013, she had a conscious abduction experience, and it drove her kind of down this hole of wondering what it was all about. And eventually, 4 years later, had a regression, and that regression kind of opened her eyes to her past. And the same thing happened with April. She was having nightmares. She was having these things happen to her over the course of a 2-year period. Husband got tired of, he thought something was up, and he recommended that she go and see Yvonne Smith, got regressed. She didn't think she could be. And she learned a lot about her past and that she had been abducted, both Geraldine and April, around 5-6 years old. And that this was a common theme for our research and all the women that we spoke with, is that when they did their regressions, they found out that they had been abducted at a much younger age. And they recall having some sort of an implant or some sort of they were gathered with other children for the purposes of being monitored. So in Geraldine's case, she talks about having an insert put into her uterus so that they could monitor her until she was fertile, and then the whole process begins. And she's in her late 30s, mid to late 30s right now.
And I guess one of the themes, one of the trends is they will impregnate these women and then eventually later on, like, take that away.
Yeah. So there was a couple of different scenarios that we heard and discovered during this process. So one is single women, not sexually active, getting abducted, finding out they're pregnant. Or in the case of Sierra Neblina, lifelong lesbian, had never been with a man, wakes up one morning pregnant and carries a baby for nearly 4 months. Has all the signs. She said, there was no doubt in my mind that I was pregnant. In those cases, it's more a matter of a fertile egg so they're abducted. An egg is usually taken during an abduction. It is then introduced to other genetic material, kind of incubated for a little bit, and then they're abducted again and it's reinserted. Oh. Other people have had fetuses that were forming based on becoming pregnant with a spouse or a partner, and they would then get abducted, and there would be an introduction of additional DNA to the equation. So again, I'm not an expert. I'm just telling the stories. But the thing that we kept hearing over and over again is that there are certain women who are having the latter situation where they're giving birth to children who are basically considered starseed children, or there's another Mary Rodwell
indigo,
refers to
maybe,
them as,
indigo.
Yeah, indigos, and the new human.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating rabbit hole to go down when you have the time to start doing the research.
Do these kids look different?
Go ahead.
Sorry, do these kids look
Hang on.
different?
There you go.
Sorry, do these kids look
Yeah,
different?
I would say that there's visually sometimes there's something. In Stan's case, he had experiences where he said he was being contacted by children that were like 6, 7, 8 years old, and purportedly a few times had captured them with photographs, and also in some people that showed up at his speaking engagements that were witnessed by other people that just didn't look right. So I never had a chance to see any of those myself to say that, yeah, this is definitively what happened. But there was witness testimony that was captured saying that, these experiences with these children showing up without any parents and then disappearing came across as unusual. And that was likely at the conference that you were talking about in 2013.
Yeah.
At the Aquarius Hotel
it was in Fountain Hills. It was in Fountain Hills.
No, this was the other. Yeah. This was the other one that's held up in Nevada.
Yeah.
At Laughlin, Nevada.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was the Bill Brown one. So
Yeah.
I think it was one of the last ones that he had up there.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, they're again, what we're hearing, our research indicated, talking to some of the experts who've done investigations through MUFON and other researchers have said these are stories that they hear over and over again, and they hear these stories of seeing children that are a little bit different. One of we have had a connection to a child just within the last 3-4 months who started sharing information with us that there's absolutely no way this young child could, a young, less than 5 years old, could have known, and started connecting dots on things related to geography, weather, earthquakes, kind of predicted all the earthquake activity that was happening in California, in Southern California about a month ago, back in July. So strange stuff, names of people, connections to their stories, just things that when you're present as they're happening, they really make you question the paradigm that we consider to be our reality, because it's easier to live in that reality than it is to question something different.
Yeah. So the main thing that's happening here is the supposed ETs, are they mostly grays then for this type of thing?
It not necessarily, because we did an interview with Clifford Stone for our third film, and he talks about, I think it's 47 or 57 different types of species, and each one of the species, based on some of the things that we heard during our research, may have a different agenda. We don't know what those agendas are, and they're doing something. Yeah. So Rob Fullington in the film was having his experiences primarily with mantis beings, and it was more of a consciousness event, so reproduction through shared consciousness and cloning. So that's a whole different story than reproduction in the way that we understand it. Yeah. So different agendas, most likely for different races. Yeah.
So did any of these people that you first started interviewing, like 40 to 50 you mentioned, did any of them have any MyLab experiences? So we say, have you heard of MyLab, Darren, at all? It's the military.
That's a whole nother can of worms for sure.
Yeah. So they didn't have any of those mixed in.
We chose not to go too far down that rabbit hole. We kind of talk about it briefly in the film and don't really zone in on it, because as soon as you start bringing up something that requires a whole film unto itself, people would be like, "What is that? What are they talking about?" So Melinda, Niara, and Sierra definitely had prior to the film, and Geraldine has definitely had MyLab experiences after the film was made.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
The main reason I asked it is because I still question whether it's
all happening.
No, not whether it's ET or not. So we go out CE5s, we look for UFOs, and we see things. Sometimes when I ask questions out loud, there'll be a big flash bulb in the sky, and everybody will be like, "Oh, that's your answer." Like the other day, I mentioned about the fast walkers going across, if they're like high altitude secret space program craft flying across the planet, and I got 2 flashes. And then I was thinking about, I was in the middle of asking, in abductions, is the MyLab like a glitch happening in the somebody sees through the illusion or whatever, and is it a normal abduction, but it's showing this glitch, and a flash happened in the back, but I hadn't even finished answering it yet, and I was like, so what does that mean? You don't get, there's not many flash bulbs, but when you ask a pretty profound question and you get an answer, it's pretty weird. And I just had this thought of what if people that see the military type personnel is seeing somehow a glitch, or seeing through the illusion of, it's supposedly being an overlay of a gray or a mantis being or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like hologram projector broke?
Yeah,
malfunctioning.
Something like that.
The Wi-Fi's interfering with it, or her cell phone's ringing. It's like, it's interfering. And they're like, oh my God, it's the U.S. military.
Yeah,
I can see that.
But they do talk about those things, that there's like the veil is thin in certain places and certain times where there is that little glitchy, and they do see something that they're not supposed to see. Geraldine had an abduction experience where she thought it was a handsome man.
Oh, right.
She said by the time she came into consciousness, it was not. She said it was basically a reptile, almost a robotic type, a robotic type experience. And Rob had seen a similar thing where it was projected as a tall white or a Nordic being, and then there was that little glitchy thing where he saw the being behind that. So the perception that these people have had is that maybe we're basically having these screen memories implanted so it's easier for us to digest. Now I don't have, I've never been abducted. I don't know what that, I've never had an experience that I could honestly relate to. And, you know, when I hear stuff like that, the only thing I could think of is, because people are like, well, if they, you know, they're so far advanced, they have the technology, they can do whatever they want.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
So why would they have glitches? Well, I think, you know, it's more a matter of that they're doing it in the moment so that we're not traumatized in the moment, but eventually it's kind of like the secret sauce wears off and you kind of start to feel and see what really and truly may have happened to you.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more of like in the deep, you know, I wouldn't put it past the deep state to be having this whole hybridization program going on, and they're testing whatever they want to test on humans and having a whole lineage of test subjects without people really knowing it, taking them away and then, you know, having them grow up in some other area, but it all looks ET to us, you know? And
well, what would it be like if the Nazis had won?
Probably a lot like it looks like right now.
You know, I mean, they supposedly were the Nazis were supposedly doing all this crazy stuff. So
yeah.
There's that one guy that was all about the twins. What was his name? You know, he went off to farm twins for the next 50 years.
Let's not get into that tangent. That's a big tangent.
It is, but I mean, at the same time, it would explain a lot.
Well,
it explains more than you think. Rabbit holes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It explains more than you think.
Yep.
Especially if you look at that as all being a front for the Western Front.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Project Paperclip and all that. And
yeah, sure. Because you know what Project Paperclip was a fucking extraction.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Not just a
no, it was an extraction. Yeah. Extracting as many as they could before the Soviets got there and started.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
this is why we're not going down that tangent.
I think a lot of the abduction stuff is more military and human type stuff, and the actual outside aliens aren't really in contact with us that much. But that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this is the hard part, I think, for us that have not had an abduction experience. And it's one of the lines in the film, unless it's happened to you, it's just a story.
Yeah.
And we can't begin to relate to it. But when you're sitting across from somebody and they're telling you, I was in a conscious state of mind when I had this experience. It was not a dream. I was not in, you know, having sleep paralysis. This was something that I was conscious. I was aware of my surroundings. I was aware of what was in front of me. I've talked with other people since the film has come out, because since the film, we started promoting the film, but because once people start to hear that there's something that resonates with them, that kind of touches upon their personal experience, they start reaching out to you. And that was another one of the reasons why we decided to make this film, is at the end of, right after the film on Stan Romanek launched in July of 2013 or 2017, we started getting a ton of messages on social media, direct messages and emails about, thank you for making this film and putting it out there. Now I know I'm not alone. Now I know I'm not crazy. Now I know that there's other people out there having experiences just like me.
Yeah.
And that was like we had over 700 messages of that ilk. And it was something that really hit home, is that there's a lot of people who are not willing to talk about their stories because they think they're going to be perceived as crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then something comes along and they see it and they feel like, wow, this validates me. This validates my experience. And that really became a huge part of this film for me personally. When we had the chance to do the second one, initially I was a little bit hesitant, didn't want to be pigeonholed in this genre. But by the time I was done with the interviews and had the interviews on the phone, and then had a chance to do the face-to-face interviews with these individuals, especially during the interview with Melinda, it hit home to me that my reason for being involved in this was not about telling stories about abductions. It was telling stories about humanity, about the human experience.
Yeah.
And the tone of the film definitely has an essence of it about, creating awareness, understanding that someone who's been through something that you don't understand doesn't mean that you should disregard it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, both Richard Dolan says and Alejandro say in the film, is that we need to listen to the stories because they are presenting us with valuable information if we choose to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciated the tone of that, where it's about being able to share your experience and just being comfortable to talk about things. I really did like that about it.
Yeah, and we're hoping that that message resonates, because really the film is about creating awareness. We wanted to target the masses, so the center of the bell curve is what we're going for.
Yeah.
And we wanted them to have an awareness that this is a potential possibility out there, and these people are going through something traumatic. We don't know what it is, because if we haven't had it, we don't understand it.
Yeah.
But if they're experiencing trauma in some way, we should be compassionate and empathetic towards what they're going through. That is a big, strong point in the film.
Yeah.
And then the third part really is that we want to encourage people who've had experiences to find community, seek people who can help them better understand what may have happened or is happening to them, and have them find that tribe that can help them deal with it. And when you realize that you're not alone in this, it changes your dynamic with how you interact with other people, because a lot of people retreat. A lot of them get emotional. There's a lot of depression that it's like, why me? And they're this roller coaster ride of emotions that they go through. And we've had people in the last 2 months that have reached out. We had one musician that's based overseas that was saying, I can't talk to anybody about this because my career is starting to take off. And I can't, if I do this, it'll be a kiss of death for me, but I need to talk to somebody. I need to find somebody I can trust and tell my story to help me help me put a place for it in my head. So we helped, this person connect with a couple of, not healers, but, therapists in this space, and regression therapists. And there was another couple that reached out and said, my partner is going through this, and the woman was concerned that her partner was something, it was a negative experience that he was pulling in, and she was concerned. And she said, is there anything that we can do to help? Do you know anybody that we can talk to that is not going to make his story public? So people are entrusting us with that type of information because it looks like we care, and we do. And one of our goals is to hopefully help people make those connections to resources that will help them better understand. And we developed a resource page on our J3 Films website. It's j3films.com/support. And that URL is in the closing credits of the film. Just before the credits roll, it says if you feel like you need to reach out and need more information about this, go to that website, and there's resources on that page that hopefully will help people who are looking for a starting point about how can I help myself better understand what's going on. Those resources are available to help them start the process of research.
Yeah. Besides the healing that can happen afterwards by people getting in touch with others and the regression type stuff, was there any direct experiences throughout your whole process of making the second film of healing from direct experience in a way, or any type of extraordinary healing?
There was awareness. For me personally, everybody had their own little connections throughout the whole process of aha moments. And one of our partners, J3 Films partners, Jamie Cernoff, was more of you guys like to play in this sandbox. I'll support you and help you, on the financial side of things and manage the business. But that's your thing. But as he went through this journey with us, on set and saw these stories, he started to change his attitude and realized that what was happening to the individuals was real to them. So he started to realize that I can't be so quick to discount someone's story just because I don't understand it, which is fantastic. Me personally, when we did the interviews with Geraldine, I had an immediate connection when she opened the door, as if I had known her. As soon as she opened the door, it was like a blast of energy, and I was like, whoa, there's some familiarity there. And we talked about it, during the interview. We talked about it after, when we were doing some B-roll shots in her house, because that's where the abduction had happened. I saw a painting in her room, and I was like, oh, wow, I've seen this painting before. This is, thinking that it had been around, and it's something that I may have seen online somewhere. And she's like, I just painted that last week.
No way.
So it was one of those things for me. It was just kind of like, whoa, that's kind of weird. There's some sort of a cosmic connection here that I didn't quite understand. But her thought process and her level of understanding and what she's been exposed through takes us into a whole different discussion, a whole different paradigm of existence, that if we're willing to go there, explore it, take ourselves out from this little construct in which we live in now and think big, it changes the way you look at everything. And I think that's one of the challenges with so many people who don't believe, is that their paradigm is packed into a nice little neat ball, and they don't want to expand that ball at all. They want to stay within that, and anything from the outside that seems to interfere with that ball appears as a threat to them. So there's an immediate reaction to discount it. So that's one of the themes in the film. I'm sure you noticed the expanding circles, and it's based on an essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson called Circles. And the concept behind there is that whenever we expand our thought, our awareness, our knowledge, and there's breakthroughs to the point where we're like, aha, this is what this means. And this takes us to a whole different plane, whether it's math or physics or science or exploration and discoveries on our planet, biological. It just opens the door to exponentially more questions. It doesn't answer anything. All it does is expand our desire to ask more questions and seek more answers. And all you have to do is think back to the people who thought that the Earth was flat back thousands of years ago. Think about during, I think it was Galileo, when Galileo said that the solar system is the center of the universe and not the center of the sun is the center of the solar system, not the Earth. It was imprisoned for it, because that was heresy, and he just, he's wrong, and he had to denounce that. And I think he had his fingers crossed behind his back, and he did, so he could get out of prison. But he was right; they were wrong. And once that was accepted, boom, the circle expands a little bit more, and there's more awareness. Now it's ludicrous to think that the Earth was the center of our galaxy, or of our, the center of everything. It's the sun. We revolve around the sun. The sun doesn't revolve around us. We know that now, but back then it was wrong. So take that and extrapolate it out. What is it that we realize today that isn't going to be true 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now?
Yeah.
Because we're going to have that expansion of the circles that help us better understand the true realities of this current paradigm in a way that we really haven't contemplated before.
Maybe to go back to the Earth being at the center. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh, imagine how fast the circles are going now, too, with technology and how we're connected. Okay. I mean, it's my little circle. I can feel that happening. More and more questions, realizing more and more things are connected, and people like yourself talking about a completely different subject, but saying the same thing. Like we just had a discussion earlier tonight, and it was very similar, right? Changing the way you think about everything. I mean, that was the topic again.
Well, it's very interesting, all of what you just said, because I had a positive kind of ET experience when I was 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And I always remembered it as a positive thing. But I've never liked any of the dark ET type movies or the topic in general or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not interested in any of that. So I don't know. It's, I had an experience and now I just don't want to look at the dark part of it or something.
And that's one of the things that we explore in the third film. So the third film is basically in 3 acts. The first act is going to be history, to give people a perspective that this didn't all start in 1947. From 1947 to now is kind of like the modern era of UFOs and contact. But it goes back much, much further than that. And there's tons of evidence, and there's tons of TV shows, and there's documentary films that have focused just on the historical, the biblical, the ancient side of it. So we're going to touch upon that for a little bit in the beginning of the film to set some context. And then the gist of the second film, or the third film, is going to be discussion of the 3 paradigms of belief. All 3 of these paradigms believe that there is intelligent life, they're visiting the planet, they're abducting people, and hybrid children are a result of that. And those 3 different paradigms are the religious paradigm, the biblical paradigm that believes that, this is the great deception. And once the aliens reveal their true selves, then the deception occurs and Jesus returns. There are people who believe that the Bible is right 100% of the time. 100% right 100% of the time was a mantra that had been instilled in me when we had interviews with L.A. Marzulli and Timothy Alberino, who are going to be in the next film. So they're hardcore believe in that. And then there's the ascension people who believe that it's something that's positive, that's going to raise the vibration so that we have a better connection to source and an understanding of our place in the universe. And there's an interdimensional element to all of this that we will have a connection to and a better understanding of our existence. And it'll raise our vibration to a higher level. And then there's the Dr. Jacobs crowd, Dr. David Jacobs, who believes that this is colonization. And that there's nothing good that's going to come of it. It's going to end badly for all of us on Earth. So those are three very, very different belief systems and people who are vehement in their defense of their belief system. So we want to bring that to the table because we know that there will be people like you who say, I've had a positive experience, and they will likely fall in the ascension crowd. There are other people who are going to say that I believe firmly in religion and that I believe that, this is going to lead to the second coming. And then there are people who and we talked with Richard Dolan too, and he says, is the research kind of points, unfortunately, more towards what Dr. Jacobs had uncovered. There's really not a lot of evidence that points to the ascension side and or the Bible side, other than the belief and faith that surround those. So,
from an abduction standpoint, though, there must be overwhelming evidence of just contactee through all the other means, downloads, channeling, contact, like we go out with the C5s, that kind of stuff, like. So I think isn't there a plethora of evidence there that's not abduction but still contact?
Sure.
That might fall into the ascension category? I mean.
But I think those would fall into all three. Because all three of them believe that there is visitation, that there is contact, that they're here, they're present, they're among us. But the end game really is what they think is going to be different. And, my response to that is I have no idea.
Yeah.
We just want to present the information that's out there from people who have been studying it, who believe, wholeheartedly that their paradigm is the right one.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of an underlying current in there that we will be playing with, and that I definitely want to introduce into this, is that just because you believe something doesn't necessarily mean it's right. We want to encourage people, because we've already had responses to some of the social media sites since the film launched a few days ago, where they're saying this is rubbish, this is bullshit, this is garbage. Anybody that believes this is a nutcase. Well, why do you feel that way? Is your bubble firmly packed tight with your belief structure? What would cause you to break out of that? And those are the type of things that we want to encourage people to look at both sides, or all sides, or maybe all three of these paradigms. Do that research, find out what you don't know before you make assumptions, and commit yourself 100% into an area that sometimes is hard to believe. And I've mentioned this numerous times to people, and it usually is something that kind of riles people up. So my apologies to those listening if it riles you up. But what's the difference between someone who believes in the faith of their religion and someone who believes in the faith of ufology?
Yeah.
Where's the proof on either side? We don't have tangible, empirical, scientific proof. We have faith-based systems. We have evidence and stories on both sides, but we don't have that empirical proof.
Funny enough, that's where we're heading even with information, I think. I think we're like 5 or 10 years removed from, we're already there in a lot of ways when it comes to anything political. Anything politicized is you believe what you want. You got these news channels and these outlets, and I think in 10 years we're going to get back to this thing where everything is sort of faith-based. When we're running, we got algos that are going to be running our lives on the AI side of things, and we're not even going to know what they're up to because they were programmed by other algos that we've lost control of that a couple of years ago, and everything's going to go back to faith-based. It's kind of funny in that sense where people, there's very little foresight in that, not wanting to get into faith-based things, I think, because I think, like I say, I think we're at most a couple decades away from being back to almost a completely faith-based society, with or without it, with
just because you don't know what, because all the information you're taking in, it can be construed in many different ways, and it can be fake.
We're already at the point where we got the fake Jordan Peterson talking website. We got all the deep fake video coming out. So we're a couple years away from not knowing who's saying what, when they're saying it, what CGI is happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Harry Potter's the Messiah.
All bets are about to be off, and we're going back to a 100% faith-based civilization.
So was Jesus the original starseed then? He was that was the immaculate
Well, I don't
conception?
know. I guess that's the question.
How long has this been going on?
That's the one paradigm for sure.
Yeah, but I think it goes back before that, and we do have an interview that we did for. We actually did the interview for the seeding, but the context in how it fit into a religious discussion would have derailed the message of this film. So we decided that we would save it for the third film, and potentially do a standalone story around this. And the person that we interviewed, his name is George Zervos, and he is a Greek Orthodox priest, a former priest, now a teacher at University of North Carolina at Wilmington, is instructor there. And he teaches a class there which basically challenges the Bible. This is coming from a Greek Orthodox priest. He has studied the Bible, the New Testament, and some of the things that he shares about the New Testament from somebody who is of the cloth is, he said, I do the research based on the words that are presented in the Bible, not based on what was said and been interpreted over centuries, but the words that are said. And he said, when you compare these word by word, line by line, page by page, he says the plagiarism in the Bible and in the different Gospels is rampant. And he said that there is no original story there. It's just a bunch of plagiarism. But he does talk about that, because it's one of the questions we ask is Jesus a hybrid? And he said, well, if you believe, if you're talking about having this being from the sky come down and make this woman pregnant and she's a virgin, yeah, Jesus is the original hybrid child. He said that if you want to look at it from that way, there's the mythology around that is no different than what we're talking about in this film.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What we're talking about today. So he said, think about it from the time of the people who were present. They had no concept of what the universe was, let alone the solar system, let alone what was beyond what they could see with their eyes. They had no idea. Yeah. And if there was something in the sky that was an anomaly, they recorded it, they documented it. That's why things appear, historically, symbolism that could represent, visitors from another realm.
Yeah. Yeah, even building on what Darren said there about the, not being able to believe anything or it all coming down to faith. I mean, that's why it's so important that people start sharing their experiences. And that's what we've found doing this over the last few years, is because so much more now is going to be built on personal experiences and being able to share that back and forth. And you'll have trust in, I trust you guys to, when you tell me something, that it's the truth. And that's where my faith will come from, is, community experiences or my own experiences, and not, reading some comment on a blog that could be a bot, or whatever it is.
Reality is subjective.
Yeah.
Sure. Perception is reality, and what you perceive to be the truth is your truth until something shakes it.
Yeah.
Shakes it hard.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're going to encourage people to do by the end of the third film is we've taken you this far. We have just scratched the surface. It's now up to you to do a deeper dive based on the things that have been presented and how it resonates with you. So a big part of the third film will be encouraging people to do their own research, not listen to somebody else's. So if there's a certain thing that you've read about that you don't believe, that's what you should research first, is what you don't believe, not what you do believe, but what you don't believe, to see, is there any validity to it? Is there a reason why I feel the way that I feel? Is there a reason why I get defensive towards something, and try to better understand it? And the best thing I could recommend to people who don't believe this is to spend more than a minute or two watching a video about a certain person or certain case or certain piece of evidence. Spend the time doing the research about their background. And if you can, sit down with them and talk with them. Spend a day with that individual and then see how you feel after spending that time with them, whether or not you think they're crazy or perpetuating a hoax.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys do a good job in the movie as well as showing that it's not just happening from a dark bedroom, with the lights out, right. And it's there's daylight things, there's multiple witness things, there's other people involved, like you said, that can corroborate the evidence. So it's there's more to it than just lights in the sky and people getting swooshed out of their rooms in the middle of the night.
Yeah, Geraldine's abduction happened in a busy suburb of San Jose. It wasn't like she was out in the country somewhere. People are being abducted from high rises in major cities all over the world, or have abduction stories. So, those are things that there's no geographical location that's more prone to it than others. It may be more of a access to information, the ability to tell the story. So some more remote areas that might not have internet or reliable contact through internet and social media channels may take longer for those stories to come out. You may have certain parts of the world where people are like, I'm never going to talk about this because I will be ridiculed. I will be shunned. There are people from a religious point of view. One of the women in the film, the one who's silhouetted, this really challenged her faith. She's very much a religious person. And she said, I just don't know how something like this, God could allow something like this to happen. So when you have somebody of faith who's had a personal experience challenge their belief system, it's profound and it's traumatic. And that's something that we really hope is a takeaway for people, is that just because I didn't experience doesn't mean that they didn't. The person, on film or someone who shared a story with me didn't experience it. If we embrace them a little bit more and ask questions and encourage them to feel comfortable sharing their stories, I think we'll find out there's a lot more people who've had some sort of a contact experience than we realize.
Yeah. Like Michael, I didn't even think you had one. Did I know about that? You might have told me. Yeah. Yeah, you told me before. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was like I woke up out of a dream, so it very well could have been a dream. And at the time, there were all sorts of alien movies and stuff that were just hitting the mainstream. So, but it was more of a positive, I was surrounded by friends, and it was the end of a class or something. We were all graduating, packing up our bags, congratulating each other for graduating. And it was like in this biodome kind of thing where you could like zoom in on certain parts of the earth and explore different studies and such. And then when the people, as we all said goodbye to each other, then they started to like fade back away from me. And then there were just my close group of like 3 friends. And then there was just one person. And then they were, okay, so if you're good here, then we're going to go. And then they kind of like got further and further away, and I kind of watched them until they were just a twinkle in the sky.
Wow.
So, I mean, I would never consider that an abduction story, but I also didn't share that story or feel comfortable sharing that story. Until I met you guys, basically. But, until not too long ago. Yeah. Humanity just wasn't, our culture or society just was not ready
to taboo
hear
still.
that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So.
How's it come off so far? It's been out for a few days. Has there been, besides some of those negative comments and
launched,
stuff?
Yeah, there's always going to be, and that's fine. That's okay. I don't let any of that bother me too much. Some of my partners are ready to jump on and go toe to toe verbally with these people. At least it's not worth it. No. If they want to find, more out about it, they'll find it on their own terms. We're not preaching. We're not pushing this down anybody's throat. It's there for people who are interested enough to watch it and experience from it. And one of the things that we've seen happen to people who've seen screeners of it. So it's screened at 2 film festivals, at 3 showings, and talking to people afterwards, doing the Q&A, and then afterwards, out in the parking lot, sometimes in the foyer, sometimes grabbing a bite to eat. People are telling us that, this film triggered something with me. It triggered a memory. We've had a couple of people who've watched it prior to doing radio and podcast, say that I something happened while I watched it. It triggered something in me, and it brought me back to a memory that I had that I completely forgot about, but it opened my mind to it. It opened the door to that again, to that experience. And one woman in particular said, I need to process this before I truly understand what the trigger event was. She said it was pretty profound when I was watching the film, the impact that it had. And we had when we screened it in Pasadena in March, we had a whole bunch of people in the audience that broke down and cried during the movie.
Wow.
There's like 6 or 7 different people who had experiences based on what they were watching, reacting to what they had seen. And in talking to them, you know, they said their response was based on it brought something, it triggered something, it awakened something within them that was profound.
Yeah.
So I don't know the details of what those were, and I don't know if it was a connection to something in the past or if it just, you know, made their skin crawl. I'm not quite sure, but this is something that has happened in more than one occasion, and that to me is, I think, a good thing. It's not necessarily. It's not. I'm not sharing this because it's spooky. I think it's making people realize that I may have something in my past that I was burying or that had been kind of hidden away that I now need to, if I choose, do a little bit more research and find out, you know, what that might be.
Yeah, there might
historically might be for me.
Yeah, there might be a lot of unconscious trauma that people need to
sure
deal
helping
with,
them process.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. You know, we're not out to change the world, but if we know that we can help some people better understand what might be happening to them, or have happened to them, or to take it a little bit deeper, then that would be something we could be proud of.
Yeah. So you mentioned the cosmic sort of, I can't remember the word you used. And then Geraldine's story as well, when you met her. Was there any other kind of synchronistic moments or any kind of, you know, cosmic-y type things that happened to you? We had a couple people on doing films like this, and I mean, some of the stories are crazy of profound moments or synchronicities or things that just shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, we've had some things, not necessarily in the moment of making this film, the thinking that went into all of us after we did the full day interview with Geraldine. It was like we were all mentally exhausted after spending 8-9 hours at her home interviewing her, because it was so, a lot of it was very cerebral, very spiritual, very metaphysical, very interdimensional, multiverse, versus, you know, just having a conversation about an abduction. It was really big picture stuff. So there's that trigger of, okay, maybe I need to think about this from a different perspective. And where we went from the conversations that we had as a result of having that type of exposure to a different paradigm was, well, when a disclosure occurs, if it does, whether it's from the government or it's from us who you know, there's finally a tipping point where people believe that this is happening and more stories get shared and it becomes something that's more of a common knowledge. When that happens, what does that mean? It doesn't mean just like, oh, the government was lying, or, oh, you know, now we know they're out there. It could mean that there is technology that we can't comprehend. It could force us to realize that there are multidimensional existence that we can't relate to, but yet once we're exposed to them, all of a sudden we have the ability to move through them. That's a whole different world that we can't even begin to comprehend. We're 3D beings. We think linearly. We don't think about moving interdimensionally. So that's a big part of like a profound moment for all of us working on this, is that what we don't know is could be more impactful than we could possibly imagine if this happens in our lifetime, where the understanding occurs. Yeah. So that's a pretty profound thing. We've had some things happen as a result after the film, some synchronicity things that have happened that don't make sense at all with timing of things and people who've contacted us, and just, you know, it makes you wonder, is it more a matter of it being a coincidence, or have things been lining up? And I could even say that, you know, I'll go all the way back to 1996. Jack Roth went with some friends to visit the Myrtles plantation, went to New Orleans and then went to visit the Myrtles plantation, which is well known in the Southeast as being one of the most haunted mansions in the United States. And it's been on TV shows and written about, and there's tons of activity there. If you ever want to go to some place and have an experience, that's the place to go, because chances are pretty good you will, whether you stay there for one night or for a weekend. But when he was there, he took some photos, not intentionally, but when he had the film developed, and this is back in the film days before digital, he had images on there that just were shocking, of a plasma energy shape of a girl, and then a disembodied spirit floating over a front porch that we wound up showing to Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are the world's most foreknown paranormal investigators back in the 70s. They're the ones that did The Conjuring. They were the ones that did Amityville Horror. They're the ones that did all these research in these things. They're very well known. Had a chance to show the images to them. One of them, Ed said, was like, well, the plasma one, that's something that you see. And these are, for anybody who's been doing research, they've seen these. He said, but this other one, he goes, where'd you get this? And it was one of those things where he said, it's a top 5 photo that I've seen in my 40 years of doing investigations. So it was one of those moments where it was just kind of like the switch was flipped on, and more so with Jack than with me at that time. We wound up putting together a concept for a TV show, a 10-minute proof of concept, for a show that was called Hauntings, where we went with paranormal investigators and psychic mediums into locations and filmed them doing their thing for the investigation and captured some crazy stuff. So we pitched it as a TV show. Nobody was interested. 7 years later, Most Haunted comes out in England and basically changes the entire paranormal universe on television. So we were way ahead of the game there on that. But that was a profound moment. That was one of those things that was a catalyst for everything that happened after that. And, the things that happened with Stan were, they're 2x4s to the head, waking up moments. But to me, the big thing that changed everything was getting a call out of the blue, unsolicited. Had kind of forgot that the film, was done, completed, didn't make the money back that we needed to pay off the people who loaned us money. Really upset about that, kind of gnawing in the back of your head. Then get a phone call out of the blue from the Orchard saying, we want to distribute your film. Why? Where did that come from? Yeah. It kind of makes you think, was that a coincidence? Because everything that's happened after that has been unbelievable for us who have been involved with this. And some of the things that happened in the last 3 months and the connections that we've made with people that have lined up to present us with opportunity to do things that we never thought we would be able to do have manifested. And, it may be a matter of us putting ourselves in that path and then just getting caught up in the current. Or it could be a matter of this, we were nudged into the stream type of thing.
Yeah. Maybe you got a magician on the staff.
Maybe. Could be.
They're more common than you think.
Magicians or warlocks or wizards?
Well, magicians, yeah. Modern day
manifestors,
shaman, manifestors, and tenders. Sure. People who can tweak the simulation in their favor.
Now we're back to D&D again.
That bubble can overlap into other people's realities and drag them along for the ride. It could be you. Sure, you could be the magician and not even know it.
Yeah. I could be. I might be. Yeah.
You do seem sort of magical.
Ponder that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just a blurry background, but you're really giving off a warlock.
Giving off the magic vibe, the magician vibe.
Yeah.
I want to run with that one.
You should. And then the next thing you know, this will be like the new Independence Day, but it'll be more, you'll have some more creative control. It'll be a blockbuster. Sure. Boom. Everyone's like, that's it. We're in.
I mean, that is amazing.
Actually, we do have some things that that are more scripted in nature that have manifested as a result of this. I had this was back in 2011 time frame. I woke up one morning and it was just around the holidays. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I had this entire story in my head.
Wow.
Where I was like, oh, I got to write this down, and I just sat down at my computer and just mind dumped this whole thing
right there.
And it was, and I'm convinced that it was a download because I had never had this in my head before, and I spit it out, and It was all there, and it basically is a story. Originally thought of it as a graphic novel, like a 3-part series graphic novel, but I've talked with people about it since then. They're like, this would make a great film or a miniseries. That it connects, and one of the people that read the script from not a script, but a treatment from the perspective of I'm connected to all of this, said that what you documented here is more real than you realize, and that it's a reality that exists, and it was obviously a gift to you. So again, do I believe all that? I don't know, but like you're saying, I might be a magician, so maybe I should own that.
There you go. Yeah. See, Darren, you're intuitive.
The force
Darren.
is strong with you.
At least own a tall, pointy cap.
Yeah.
Hey, get one of those. I could rock that.
Yeah.
I could rock that.
Cool.
Grow the beard out a little bit more, get a little bit of that wistful warlock look.
That's it. Yeah, I'm an Indian, so it kind of comes in a little patchy, but what are you gonna do? I won't go bald, so that's a good thing. Do you have like any social media accounts or anything for the film, or websites, or any place?
If anybody wants to learn about this, to see the trailer, to order the film, I would recommend they go to extraordinarytheseating.com. That's a website that kind of that's a launching point for purchasing the film. It's It's available on several different platforms that are all listed on there. And if you have a preferred there's a Genius link, and the way these Genius links work is if you have a Mac and you click on the Genius link, it should open up in iTunes. If you're in on your TV and you have a smart TV and you use Redbox, it should automatically open it in your preferred platform.
Oh,
but
cool.
It doesn't always work, because we've had some people are like, it's just popping up on iTunes, and I don't use iTunes. What can I do? And if you go to the extraordinarytheseating.com, all of the links are there for you to click on your preferred platform. And there's, I think, 9 or 10 different platforms that it's available on right now.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and we're on Facebook. That's where a lot of our engagement is on our Facebook page. So it's facebook.com EX2 The Seating. EX2 for Extraordinary 2. So EX2 The Seating is the Facebook page. So those would be the 2 places that I would direct people to.
Where can I get a hat?
Where can you get a hat? Well, actually,
it's an extraordinary hat.
Oh, it's an extraordinary hat. I need a hat.
So we actually are in the process of starting up a Patreon account, and we're going to have swag that goes along with that. And we're in the early stages of building out a shopping cart that includes caps and T-shirts and other things. Eventually, it's in its very primitive form right now. And I think it might be on the Extraordinary The Seating website. There's a merch tab in the menu. So
I will take a look. I'll get you a hat.
This is a one of a kind one too. This is the only one of its kind that exists. Very unique.
Yeah, it's very good. I like
the unicorn.
Does it have the seating on the back, or is it just extraordinary?
No, it just has
okay. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, good.
Right here.
I'll trade you for some Grimerica branded magic mushrooms.
I think we'll work something out.
Allegedly, yeah. Well, this is great. I mean, I didn't watch the film yet, so I'm gonna have to check it out now.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. Yeah.
I'm not a big Alien guy, but you sold it. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Well, I think
one of the things interested in this one, I am excited.
Well, one of the
see.
things that I'm adamant about, and I might get shot by my distributor for this, but I think the trailer appeals to people who are interested in the more fantastic elements of ufology, the shock value. I think the essence of this film is more of an emotional one.
Yeah.
And I think it really plays to women who have had, any woman who has had a miscarriage, or any person who's been through had a sense of loss, a relationship, a loved one.
Yeah.
If you can connect to that. And if we can all find a connection to compassion and empathy that would serve anyone who's had a traumatic experience, whether it's an abduction or anything, and if that resonates with people and we can sing Kumbaya a little bit more frequently, that would be a good thing. So, I think that there's a large audience for this film. I don't think it's just a a UFO genre film.
Definitely.
I hadn't considered the archetype of the Virgin Mother before, so that's an interesting angle for me to open up a can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the one that sticks out in this film is Sierra, because she's a lesbian and she's never been with a man and she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Sierra the lesbian. There you have it. Big thanks to John for coming on the show. Come back anytime. Come back when number 3 comes out.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, you should come on when that comes out. Yeah,
we're hoping it'll be about a year from now, so we'll do it all over again.
Yeah, perfect. Let's do it. Yeah. Thanks a lot. We'll put links in all the show notes, and we'll push this episode out a little quick because we know you've just launched, so we'll try and
push you to the front of the line.
Yeah,
since you're getting us some hats.
Okay, we'll set it up.
Thanks, buddy.
I'll talk to my guys. They'll talk to your guys.
Okay.
We'll get it set up.
Grabs a guy.
Okay. Just as long as you put it in the background on the Sasquatch.
Or,
you bet.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll wear it when I go on.
When
I go on expeditions. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Nice
Thanks, buddy.
Good. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
Right on.
Have a good night.
Okay.
That was our chat with John
Sumple.
Sumple.
Yeah.
What'd you think, buddy? I know you're excited
He
about
was
this
very,
one.
you never know, because I just watched the movie. I haven't listened to him, and we might have, at first it was going to be him and another guy, but he's at the Congress, UFO Congress right now.
Oh.
But it's interesting to find out how well spoken he is about the subject.
He's very articulate.
And it was fantastic. I mean, he had me enthralled the whole time. And it's amazing how much of it comes back to the same stuff we talk about: cultivating compassion and empathy for people, and understanding and listening and sharing stories. Like, it seems like whatever topic we're on about, it comes back to that.
It's weird how it all sort of ties in together.
A new reality too, and like, what if this really is going on? How does that change?
The corkscrew and fucking whatever that is the podcast streaming through reality just is sucking things in and sticking them all together. It's a weird thing. I mean, that's why me and Joe Roop I have such a good time talking to Joe Roop about because all that like personal growth and relationship and emotional growth and all that sort of stuff, and even the like intention and all that ties into his world perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's just all these different angles that I haven't considered. So
it
all ties in. It's all, I mean, ultimately we're just trying to figure out the secrets of the universe. So it should all tie in somehow.
We're just trying to be happy.
42. The secret about being happy?
No, we're
just stop trying to be happy and just be happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, you guys should watch it. It was really well done. It was very, very well done.
It's on
and it has a lot of these, that's why I brought it up at the beginning. It has a lot of these UFO guys like Richard Dolan, Mark D'Antonio, and Alejandro Rojas that are, they're open to all this stuff, but they're very skeptical. They want to follow evidence, right? They're very evidence-based, and it was good that he's able to get those guys on there. Like, that shows a lot that they did a film like that, and they had the guys that run the Open Mind Congress on the show. That was pretty good.
Cool.
There you have it. Big thanks to John for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Of course, you get an even bigger thanks, pat on the back, big old Grimerican hug if you're a supporter of the show, because we fucking love you, and we couldn't do this without you, and all of Grimerica bows before you. So support the show, grimerica.ca/support. Up your karma, boost your game, and help us keep doing shows like this.
Yeah.
Help get Graham some food. This guy hasn't eaten. It's been almost a week. He's going to crush some Tim Hortons on the way home, maybe. Michael and I are going to try and talk him out of it. We'll see what we can do. We can't promise anything. But, grimerica.ca/support. It really does give us the gas to just keep on going with these podcasts. We'll pop 2 out. Another double episode week for you guys, just because he's so lucky. I think that's about it.
Because you're so generous.
If I could just make it home, I got no food in the house. Like, I threw away stuff.
Was it you that told me to do that? Flashing neon
I already had nothing in there, and I just chucked everything.
You got to drive.
And I even put the coffee maker away, put the toaster away. The counter's empty. The fridge is empty.
Man, you got to drive by Tim Hortons and the Golden Arches.
When you're ready to stock up.
Yeah, I'm gonna start.
We'll Periscope your shopping.
Oh, dude, we should go down to Rodney's. I'll tell you, it's the best fish and chips in town. I'm fucking hooked.
You want to go there now?
It's not open right now. Can you make it till lunch tomorrow? You know what?
I could make it to lunch.
Lambert owes me a lunch.
I could make it to lunch.
You could make it to lunch. You could make it to dinner.
I know that's the problem.
You can make it through one more sleep.
I know, but
it's worth Rodney's, baby.
The problem is, like, my weekend, I can't keep doing this for the weekend. I need to cook all day Sunday.
Oh, you should have planned that.
I need to, well.
Does beer battered fish break your sobriety?
No.
Okay.
No.
Hope not, eh? Otherwise it was out the fucking window a decade. I never made it a year. Yeah, I don't know if breaded fish and French fries is really the best thing.
No, it's not the best thing.
You should ease into some
chocolate cake.
No, you should probably just hit chopped leaf and get a salad.
That's what I was thinking.
With no protein.
Yeah.
A really big salad's how you should go.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking of, or you know what I was thinking of doing is maybe doing like broccoli and spinach and asparagus and a nice steak.
Ooh, there you go.
I wouldn't do meat yet, but
fish maybe.
The slower you go, the better your system will adjust.
Yeah, I know. I just feel like horking out.
If you hammer down the fucking waffle sandwich, you just wasted the last 5 days of fasting.
You're gonna feel like a rock has just been hit.
Oh yeah, you're probably gonna crash your car on the way home because you're all jacked.
All the excited.
Go back right to the drive-thru again. Get another one.
I'll take 2 more.
A dozen donuts.
You'd be on the news for berating the poor Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
Then he broke into fucking Carl's Jr. and stole all the fucking
I've never been
Happy
there.
Meals.
Carl's Jr.
Oh man, there's something about
their
this
jalapeno fucking poppers
really?
are amazing.
Really?
There's something that they put in it.
We got to wrap this up.
The sign and I'd just be like, I have to pull over. I'm not even hungry, but I'm still pulling over.
Oh my god, that's like the waffle sandwich for me at Tim Hortons.
This is why I prefer to do fucking the 100 push-ups and the 100 sit-ups, and then you can just eat whatever the fuck you want.
Well, that's what part of my downfall was. I had no exercise whatsoever for 2.5 months, and that's.
But you're a professional athlete.
I sprained my knee.
Professionally sliding.
I sprained my knee.
The one day he walks into work, and I'm just like, listen, man, I gotta say, I was like, you look terrible. You look the worst you've looked as long as I've known you. I was like, you're getting chubby. You got a gut.
Isn't that when I rolled out the fast?
And he's like, I'm the heaviest I've ever been. And then he's like, I'm going on a fast. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're resetting Graham back to the Graham he was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Good. That's great.
Yeah. Back when I was doing yoga and exercising and eating clean. I just have to find a balance with junk food because I need to eat a little bit of it. I can't. I don't think I can do that.
Why?
No. Because I ate a bunch of candy last night.
Because sometimes I go to recovery meetings, there's junk food in there, and people are snacking, and then
don't go.
D&D, there's snacks at D&D. Like, I don't want to just avoid snacking all the time. I need to find the balance.
I'm telling you, the Candida thing really helped me break the sugar addiction.
Yeah,
I'm almost up to 50 push-ups in a shot.
I'm still not. I still don't know that. Do you want to do push-ups for us?
Paulie's gonna beat me. I'm trying to get him back in.
Oh, I see.
We're racing to 100.
My shoulders were so bad after all this gluten and the sugar for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
My shoulders were sore from not even doing anything. Like I couldn't even do push-ups. It was just so it was really because they worried that my shoulders were way better there for a while at the beginning of the year.
He did it. You did a day of the challenge. Graham started the challenge out of we're in here. We're in the lobby of the studio here. He's like, let's do some push-ups right now. Never again. But that's okay.
Get back on it.
Once you get the fast, you start eating some healthy food again, you'll feel good.
Yeah. All right, are we still recording?
Soon. Yeah. All right, guys.
You can start shuffling.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Later.
Now we got the live folks.
Thanks for watching.
We just say goodbye.
Thanks for watching. Yeah.
Thanks.
I hope people are watching since we're doing it live. And
See you in the chats.
Yeah.
See you in the
next week. Next Wednesday.